So we'll start today's class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, so welcome everyone. So today we will discuss from chapter third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Last time we briefly went over the second chapter, discussing the very important verse from second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhur mate sangho astava karmani. So we discussed that verse, and after that overall brief of second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna tells that one should do one's duty without the desire of result, just as a matter of duty. And one should try to control one's desires, because desires lead to attachment, attachment leads to anger, and ultimately it leads to the overall fall down. So one should cut down one's desire and become peaceful in life. So here up to so far, Krishna is focusing, slowly bringing up us to the level of Nishkama Karma and to the level of Karma Yoga. So now moving forward, that's where Krishna is going to focus, Karma Yoga, right? So what is the hierarchy? Krishna says, don't engage in Vikarma for sure, right? Vikarma means doing bad karma, bad activities, by breaking the laws of God, by breaking the instructions of the scriptures. So if somebody want to enjoy in this world and they don't even follow the instructions of the scriptures which are given by God, that is Vikarma. And then above Vikarma comes Sakam Karma. Sakam Karma means, okay, you want to enjoy, you want to fulfill your desires, at least do it by following the instructions of scriptures. So that's what people, many people, most of the people of this world, right, they try to follow that path. At least the religious people, they try to follow that path, that okay, we will worship this Devi or this Devata, we will do this puja, this yajna to get some benefit. So they are doing all this for their own enjoyment. That is Sakam Karma, doing the work with desires, Sakam, with the desire to enjoy themselves. So Krishna takes even further above. Krishna says, come to the level of Nishkama Karma. Nishkama Karma means do your duty just as a matter of duty, without the desire of result or without the desire of enjoyment. And then Krishna now will take even further above, that do it as Karma Yoga. See, Nishkama Karma is still not Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is you do your work to please Krishna, right? You offer your work to Krishna and you offer the result of your work to Krishna. So that is Karma Yoga. But many people confuse with Nishkama Karma and Karma Yoga with each other. They think Nishkama Karma itself is Karma Yoga. That is a stepping stone towards Karma Yoga, but it in itself is not Karma Yoga. At least it's better than doing the work for selfish desires, right? For example, you serve your parents with the desire to get something from them. That if I do this chore, what my mother is asking or what my father is asking, if I do this chore, will they give me some pocket money? Will they give me some toy? Will they give me something else? So when we do work like that, that is sakam, right? With desire, something in exchange. And if you do the work just to serve them, okay, I will do just to help my father or to help my mother without expecting anything in return, then it becomes nishkama karma. But it is still you are serving somebody, but you are not serving God. You are not surrendering the result to God. So when we surrender the result of our work to God, then it becomes karma yoga. So here in third chapter, after Krishna has described all these various things about nishkama karma, and Krishna has used the word buddhi yoga many times. So Arjuna asks this question. So Krishna, if you think buddhi yoga is better than engaging in work, then why you want to engage me in work? So what work Krishna was engaging Arjuna? The fight, right? Krishna was telling Arjuna to fight. So for Arjuna, that is a work, the work of a Kshatriya. So Arjuna is saying, okay, if Nishkam karma or working with intelligence, buddhi, is better than doing one's karma, then why you want to engage me in this war? So why Arjuna is asking this question? He is asking to remove the doubt of many other people. Because whenever the word buddhi comes, people think buddhi is related to jnana. With intelligence, you acquire knowledge. So buddhi is related to jnana, and jnana, when we get knowledge, it leads to vairagya, renunciation, right? One understand, oh, I should give up this thing. This is not nice thing to do. So when you get the right understanding that we should treat everybody equally, we should not make fun of others. So what do you give up? You give up the tendency to harm others, right? To make fun of others. So otherwise, sometimes children, when they're playing, they make fun of other children. They pick on one child and start making fun of that or pull leg of that one child. So, but when you understand, when you get this knowledge, this right understanding that we should not behave with others like that, that is mean, it's not nice, then we give up that mentality or that kind of attitude to make fun of others or trouble others. So that's where people think that intelligence means knowledge, getting knowledge, and knowledge means vairagya, giving up something, renunciation. So it means renunciation is better than work, right? So Arjuna came back to his original point. Then I was already telling you, I want to renounce. Why you want me to engage in this war? I will renounce, I will go to the forest, live like a beggar, and why you want me to fight this war? So that was Arjuna's question. Now what happens actually? There are two type of people, right? One type of people are who think spirituality means renouncing everything. If we want to progress in spiritual life, in religious life, it means giving up everything in life, renouncing everything. So that is one extreme. Second extreme is people think karma is everything, that we need to engage in karma. People who are religious people or who are spiritual people who have given up their worldly responsibilities, they are a burden on society. They think they are sitting idle, they are lazy, they don't do any work. and they are begging money from others and living at the expense of others. So that second category of people, they think karma is everything. So these are the two extreme. One extreme again is the people who think spirituality is giving up everything, or spirituality means a retirement program, that we need to practice spiritual life, practice devotional life when we grow old, when we become old people. But is that so? Nobody knows when we will become old. Anybody knows? Out of all these 20 kids here, or 20 people here in this call right now, does anybody know when you will become old? No, right? Old age comes just like it doesn't even let us know when we turn old. And we don't even have guarantee if people will really become old as per what is general understanding of becoming old is. So some of you have question, just wait for a few more minutes when I ask you to ask your question. Okay. So I was saying, see, old age, nobody knows, right? When we become old, but people think spiritual life is like when we become old. It's a retirement program. When we have fulfilled all our other duties, our studies, family life, work, and all that, and then we really become old, retire from our work. That is when we take to spiritual life. So that is the first category. Or sometimes people take spiritual life as escapism mentality. Oh, I am so much bothered with all these things, so I will give up everything and just become a sadhu, go to the forest and live like a sadhu, because living like a sadhu to them looks like a very easy thing, right? Just imagine if some of you start to think studies is very hard, going to school, doing your homework, studying all that, preparing for exam, it's too much work. Better I give up everything and I just put on the saffron clothes. I go to the ashram of some guru and become a spiritual person, become a sadhu. Right? If somebody takes to spiritual life just because of escapism, the escaping from one's duty, that is not a spiritual life. It is just a accepting an external dress. But internally, the person is not at the level of spirituality. He has no right understanding. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to artificially just externally put on the dress of a devotee, dress of a renounced person, put on tilak and all, but internally we are hankering for different things, right? See, there are many people who go to, who are so much bothered with their family life, with other responsibilities, and they give up everything, run away from home and go to Himalayas. They think we will just live in the Himalayas, become a sadhu, but they cannot handle that lifestyle also. And then they come back. So they have lost this side also, lost that side also. जैसे कहावत बोलते हैं, धोबी का कुत्ता ना घर का ना घाट का. So that would become the situation. They cannot even progress in spiritual life and they cannot progress in material life also. So Arjuna's question was, why you want me to engage in this war when intelligence is better? So I better work with intelligence and give up this responsibility, become renounced person. But Krishna further tells, don't, renunciation doesn't mean artificially accepting renunciation from externally. One has to first come to that level. Otherwise, if somebody has no proper knowledge, for them, it's better to act based on nishkam karma, or at the level of, come to the level of karma yoga. So what are the example of nishkam karma? Can you think of any example of nishkam karma? Okay, Mihika, you have any question? I know Gopal, Govind, you are raising hand.
Helping parents without anything.
Helping parents without anything.
Helping your parents with anything without expecting something from them,
Without
right?
anything. Helping your
Yeah,
parents without anything.
yeah, without expecting anything from them. Okay, that is good.
I think one example of Nishkam Karma would be that
Yesterday, I told
Okay,
her.
one person at a time. Okay, so first Mihika is speaking. Let Mihika speak.
yes, so example of Nishkam Karma would be take caring of yourself without denying that I want chocolate and everything.
Okay, okay, Gopal Govind.
I had no questions, but last week I told the wrong report. That's why.
Okay, Ovi.
And what is nishkarma? To be happy, and but don't let your work go away.
Hmm. Okay.
So
Ovi, you had a question or you want to mention something?
I wanted to say one of the examples.
Your voice is very slow.
I want to say one example.
Okay, go ahead.
So if you can do nishkama karma for Krishna by if you say you buy this book, this Krishna conscious book, and you give me some money, and you should take that money and give it to Krishna instead of keeping it for your own thing.
Yeah, so then that is actually karma yoga. No, so when you are working for Krishna or you give the result of your work to Krishna, that becomes karma yoga. So yoga, actually, what is the meaning of yoga? Okay, yoga comes from the root word yuj. Yuj means to connect. So yoga means to connect ourselves with God, to connect ourselves with Krishna. That is yoga, not the word yoga we know. Many people say, oh, I do yoga, right? On the name of yoga, what they do is they do some asanas, some exercise. That is only a one small aspect of yoga, which is Ashtanga yoga. Overall, the purpose of Ashtanga yoga is to connect our consciousness with the supreme consciousness, with Lord Krishna. That is the meaning of yoga. But people think, oh, I'm doing this yoga, but they are doing asana, some exercise postures, sitting in some pose or doing some other padmasana or tadasana or something like that. That is not the whole yoga. It is just one limb of the yoga. So yoga means to connect ourselves with Krishna, and that can be done in many ways. So starting with karma yoga. So that is the lowest rung of this yoga ladder. At least if we give the result of our work to Krishna, that is karma yoga. And then there is jnana yoga. We can connect ourselves with Krishna through knowledge, by acquiring the right knowledge which lead us on the path of bhakti. So then comes dhyana yoga. Dhyana yoga is the process of meditation, meditating on Krishna, meditating on the Supreme Lord, on his name, on his form, on his qualities, on his pastimes, right? So that are the different ways of meditating on the Lord. So that is dhyana yoga. And then bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga means engaging in service of Krishna by reading the scripture, by chanting the holy name, by serving him practically. When we teach others about Krishna, that is also part of bhakti yoga. So that is how we can connect ourselves with Krishna. So ultimately, yoga means to connect ourselves with Krishna. So karma yoga also connecting ourselves with Krishna through our work. by giving the result of our work to Krishna. Okay, anybody else has any example or any question so far? I see Swastika, you have a hand raised question, or you want to give some example?
I have an example. So like if you do something, then and you do a good job on it, then like maybe you should give the credit to Krishna for helping you during that thing.
Yeah, of course. Very good, because if we did something and we were successful in doing that, so we should understand actually Krishna helped us to do that work, right? Krishna gave us the intelligence to do that work, or Krishna gave us the physical strength to do that work. So we should always give credit to Krishna. See, there is one very famous bhajan, okay, and that bhajan is मेरा आपकी कृपा से सब काम हो रहा है, मेरा आपकी कृपा से सब काम हो रहा है, करते हो तुम कन्हैया मेरा नाम हो रहा है, मेरा आपकी कृपा से सब काम हो रहा है. So what does this mean is, all my work is becoming completed, getting completed because of your mercy. Right? मेरा आपकी कृपा से सब काम हो रहा है. And you are helping me do that work, but others think I have done this and they give the credit to me. So I am becoming credited for that. I am getting the result of that, or I am becoming famous for that. But ultimately, this is all because of your mercy. So that is how a devotee should think, that whatever I do, it's because of Krishna's mercy. I cannot do anything on my own strength. Okay, very good. So any other question, comment?
Prabhuji, I had a question. So
Okay.
why was Arjuna, like, even if he understood what a soul is, why was he still not like? Why was he still like, I don't want to fight? Like, why?
Yeah, because see, overall, understand one thing. Arjuna is becoming an instrument of Krishna, so Krishna could give this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to everybody for the benefit of everybody. So if Arjuna understood everything just with a small summary, because Arjuna was very intelligent, he could understand just with one small thing. Krishna spoke for 2 minutes and Arjuna became convinced and he is ready to fight. But he is continuing asking question to remove doubt of other people like us, who may still have doubts about our duty, what we should really do. Should I do my duty as a karma yoga or nishkam karma, or should I take to complete renunciation? So to clear the doubt of some other people's mind, that's why Arjuna is just becoming instrument in Krishna's hands. See, when we read the Mahatmya of Bhagavad Gita, right, the glorification of Bhagavad Gita, the importance of Bhagavad Gita, in that it says, Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopalanandana Partha Vatsa. So Krishna is like the milkman who is milking this cow in the form of all the Vedas, all the Upanishads. So Krishna is working like a milkman to milk this cow of all the scriptures, and Arjuna is becoming like a calf to help Krishna milk that cow. See, generally, if you go to any barn, if you see the person milking the cow, to be able to milk the cow, they bring the calf to the cow. So when the calf starts to drink milk, the cow releases all the milk in her udder. So when the calf has drank little bit milk, then the milkman can milk the cow and take out all other milk. So same way, Krishna is using Arjuna as an instrument, as a calf, to be able to milk this cow of the form of all these scriptures. So Arjuna, whenever he is asking these questions, actually he is asking for our benefit, to clear the doubts in our minds. Okay. All right. So let me tell you one story, and you tell me if that story relate to a Nishkam Karma or Karma Yoga. Okay. So once there was a farmer. So it was a very noble farmer, very good farmer, very humble person. So while he was working in his farm, he heard the shouting sounds of one boy coming from the other side. This boy was shouting for help. Help me, somebody help me. So this farmer thought, from where is this sound coming? Who is in danger? So this farmer went to the direction from where this sound was coming, and he saw one boy who was stuck in the quicksand. You know what is quicksand? Quicksand in Hindi is called daldal, right? Quicksand. So if somebody falls into quicksand, he keeps sinking into that. More he tries to come out on his own strength by moving his arms and legs, more he is sinking into that quicksand. So this boy was sinking into the quicksand and he was calling for help. So this farmer saw this boy in problem, in danger, and he threw the rope for pulling that boy out of the quicksand. So he saved the life of that boy. The boy went home thanking this farmer. So, and this farmer came back to his farm, started doing his work. So this farmer did not ask anything in exchange, right? He did not say, oh, I will help you to come out of this quicksand. What will you give me in exchange? Will you give me so much of money or so much of dollars or some other benefit? So he did not ask anything like that. He just helped him just for as a matter of duty. So this farmer came back and started doing his work. And next day, a very nice car or a very nice kind of a cart came in front of this farmer's house. And a rich person came down from that cart and knocked at the door of this farmer. So this farmer opened the door and he saw this very rich person standing in front of his house. And this farmer introduced himself. I am the father of that boy whom you saved yesterday. So I'm very thankful to you and I want to give you something in exchange. I want to give you, you can ask me anything, whatever you like. I will give you for saving the life of my son. So this farmer said, I just saved the life of your son as a matter of my duty. I don't want anything in exchange. And I did not help him for thinking that I will get something in exchange. So he did not want to get anything. Then the son of this farmer came there. And this rich man saw the son of the farmer and he told him, see, you saved the life of my son and I will like to do something for you. How about I pay for the education of your son? So he can also study in the same school, same college where my son is studying, and he can also get good education. So don't say no, I want to do that favor to you, that help to you in exchange of what you did to my son to save his life. So the farmer couldn't say anything when this rich person insisted. So he accepted. So the farmer's son also went to the school and college. He got good education. Now this farmer did not ask for anything in exchange, but this came on its own accord, right? This person came by himself to help him. So when this son of the farmer, he also got good education. He went to the medical college. He became a very famous doctor. And you know, this story is a real story. So this farmer's son he became a very famous doctor, and he is known by the name of Sir Alexander Fleming. And he was the doctor who first discovered the medicine penicillin, the medicine for pneumonia. And when he discovered this medicine, actually the son of that same rich person, he became sick with pneumonia. And he was the first person to again use this medicine, which was discovered by this boy, Alexander Fleming. So he used that medicine again to be cured from pneumonia. So now what is happening here? My question to you guys in this story, was this the act of Nishkam Karma or Karma Yoga? Okay, Mihika?
Nishkam karma.
Okay, so that was the example of Nishkam Karma. Why?
Because the farmer didn't want anything, but the rich person wanted to give him something, so you had to take it. But from his heart, he didn't want to take anything. He wasn't greedy for something.
Right, he was not greedy for something, he just did for helping. But at the same time, he did not do it to serve Krishna, right? He was just helping the other people, not directly serving Krishna, not doing something for Krishna. So that is the example of Nishkam Karma, definitely. Now, what happens in case of even Nishkam Karma? That is the moral of the story, which we should derive from this story, right? Even when somebody does Nishkam Karma, even though we did not desire anything, but the result will come. If you help somebody, then you will have to get the result of that, even though it is a good result. We have to come back to receive that good result. So farmer helped the boy to save his life. He got the reaction as a good reaction that his child, his own son, was given full paid free education, right? So he received free education. So that was his reaction, the reaction of his karma. Good karma brought good reaction. So this, because that person, the rich person, helped this farmer for paying for his son's education, he also received reaction further. So what was the reaction he received? When he became sick, he was able to receive the treatment. Right? So when he did something good, he also got the good result, a good reaction. So that is what happened in Nishkam Karma also. Even though we are doing good karma, it also brings reaction. So we have to get the good result for that. So even Nishkam Karma is binding within this material world. Because to get the result of our good karma also, we have to come back in this world. In our same life or in the next life, that result will come back to us. So we have to keep coming back. That's why the acharyas, the great sages, they say, Prabhupada says, right, this good karma, the pious activity also is binding within this material world. So we need to go even beyond Nishkama Karma to the level of at least Karma Yoga. And then further keep growing further to the level of Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. Ultimately take shelter of Krishna, so that we can completely remove this whole action-reaction system. We don't have to get the result of all the karma, either good karma or bad karma. So this is a very good example to understand how even the Nishkama Karma is binding. It will keep bringing the result back and forth. Somebody did. So in this world, many people, they want to do good karma, right? People think serving others is like serving God, right? They don't want to directly engage in service of Krishna. They think Manav Seva hi Madhav Seva hai. That serving the people is like serving God. And people call poor people as, what is the word they use is, I'm forgetting that word in Hindi. There is a particular word they use. So they think if by just serving, yeah. Okay, I again forgot. It came to my mind, again skipped. So they think by serving other people, we are serving Krishna. But that is not really true. That applies on bhaktas, on devotees. When we serve the devotees who are further serving Krishna, that is, yes, that indirectly serving Krishna, but not in general. But yes, we can help other people and we should help other people, but we can help them by keeping Krishna in the center. For example, if somebody is poor or somebody doesn't have any food, we can give them food, right? Rather than just giving them food, we can give them Krishna Prasad. In that way, they also get the benefit. They are getting the prasad from Krishna. And we also get benefit that we are not becoming bound with any karma, because we are doing it as karma yoga or even bhakti yoga. So serving, rather than just giving them as ordinary food, we should give them Krishna Prasad, the food which is offered to Krishna. But in this world, if people just engage in pious activities at the level of Nishkam Karma, let's say if somebody donates a lot of clothes to poor people, what will happen is that person in his next life will never go without clothes. He will not have any scarcity of clothes. He will have abundance of clothes. If somebody gave a lot of food to poor people, to other people, that person will never go hungry in this life or next life, right? Because he will get as a reaction of his good karma that he will also get food in exchange whenever he has need. So he will never go hungry. So like that, if somebody help other people, if some people are sick, he gives them medicine or arrange for their treatment. So this person will always have good health, or he will, even if he becomes sick, he will receive proper treatment. So that is how this whole karma and their reaction works. But this is binding. But Krishna says, okay, at least come to the level of Nishkama Karma. That is better than doing sinful activities or doing the activities just for your own selfish motives. So Arjuna's question was, why you want to engage me in this fight? So Krishna is going to answer that. So Krishna's answer is actually, don't think that renunciation is just a kind of external change of dress. One need to renounce from mental level, not be attached to anything. And there are so many examples which shows about or talk about people who actually served others, who were really renounced even while doing their duty. So for example, Maharaj Janak. Okay, if you read Ramayana, we hear about Maharaj Janak, who was the father of Mother Sita. So Maharaj Janak, even though he was a king, but he was a Rajarishi. He was a king and a saintly person, a great sage. He fulfilled all his duties of being a king, taking care of all the praja, all his citizens, but not being attached to anything. So that is a true renunciation. Renunciation doesn't mean giving up one's work. Renunciation means giving up the result of one's work, giving up the mentality of being the doer of one's work, giving up the mentality of enjoyer of the result of one's work. So that is true renunciation. So that is what Krishna is going to explain in more detail. See another example. So I gave one example of Janak Maharaj. Another example is Bharat, right? From same Ramayan. Bharat was the brother of Lord Ram. So when Lord Ramchandra went to forest for 14 years on exile. Bharat wanted to bring Lord Ram back to Ayodhya to take up the kingdom, to become the king. But Lord Ram did not agree, and finally Bharat had to come back. And Lord Ram requested him to manage the city of Ayodhya, to take care of the city of Ayodhya in his absence. And Bharat stayed outside of the city of Ayodhya as a renounced person. But he maintained the city of Ayodhya. He did the administration work for the city of Ayodhya as an acting king. But he was never attached to that throne, to that Singhasan, never thinking that, oh, I am the king and it should stay with me. So that is another example of true renunciation. Even when you have everything, you don't become attached to that. That is renunciation. So Arjuna was thinking about false renunciation as giving the work itself. And Krishna is focusing on not giving up the work, but the result of one's work. Okay, so this is how we should act. We should not think, oh, I don't want to study, I will become a sadhu. Or I don't want to do my office work, I will just become a sadhu. I will not take care of the family. It is too much burden. That is an escapist mentality. We should do all our duty with full heart, but not being attached to that. Not being attached to the result of that. Just thinking it, whatever is Krishna's desire, let that happen. Let me do my duty. Okay. All right. So I will stop here. If anybody has any questions, if anybody want to ask any questions or give any other example, please feel free to share. I see 2 hands raised, Mihika and Swastika.
Krishna Prabhuji, I have a question that you were saying in the beginning that there were 2 types of people who one believe that karma is everything and one believe that spirituality is you leave everything. So which one is actually correct?
So none of these 2 are correct. We have to take a middle path. Right?
What's the middle path?
So middle path is that we do our duty while being always remembering Krishna, being conscious about Krishna, even though while living as a student life or as a family life, don't giving up our responsibilities. Okay, so some people take the first path as escapist mentality, giving up everything artificially. Second type of people are who are completely attached to the material life, that karma is everything, काम ही पूजा है. So those are these two are extremists. We have to take a middle path, doing our duty while remembering Krishna, while surrendering to Krishna, and doing the work for pleasing Krishna.
Okay, and my second question is that if Vishkam karma is the lowest, why do like Sakham karma and then Vishkam karma? So then what is the top level? Topest level?
I didn't understand your question. There was some background disturbance. Can you speak again?
I mean that after Nishkam karma, which one should we depend on? Which other karma?
So after Nishkam karma comes karma yoga.
That is when you just depend on Krishna?
Yes, when you give up the result of your work to Krishna.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so that is the next stage of Nishkama Karma, from Nishkama Karma to Karma Yoga. But Karma Yoga also is not the highest, because Karma Yoga can take us to some level of progress in spiritual life, but it cannot help us attain the final goal of life. That can be achieved by the process of Bhakti Yoga. So just consider this one example. If you want to go from ground floor to 100th floor of a building.
Okay.
Okay. So there are different staircases in that building. So one
Yes.
staircase goes from only ground floor to 10th floor.
Yes.
And another staircase is which goes from ground floor to 20th floor. Another is which goes from ground floor to 50th floor. And then from 50th floor, you have to take another staircase which takes further up. And there is another staircase which takes from ground floor all the way up to the 100th floor. So same way, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, these are the different elevators or different staircases which go up to certain level. And then person has to utilize further Bhakti Yoga to progress further in their spiritual progress.
Okay. So there are different types of, these are the different types of Nishkam Karma?
Not different type of Nishkama Karma. See, Nishkama Karma is below even Karma Yoga. I'm saying the yoga itself are of different type. And all the yogas, not like everything is same. People think, oh, मैं कर्म योगा कर रहा हूँ, आप भक्ति योगा कर रहे हो. I'm the karma yogi, you are a bhakti yogi. So it's all same thing. In the beginning, it may seem to be same thing, but it's not same. Karma yoga can give us progress to certain level. Ultimately, we have to add the element of bhakti yoga to get the full success in our spiritual life.
Okay. Thank you, Rosie.
Okay, Swastika.
Like I was asking, like if you do a good karma, like if you donate clothes to a poor person, and then you in your next life you won't really have like you won't have less clothes, or well, whatever you donated. So like I just wanted to ask, like if you serve a devotee, then like in your next life, will you continue to do that, or will something else happen?
See, if somebody is a devotee, right, and if somebody is serving devotees and practicing bhakti, there may not be one next life. One may finish up one's business here in this life and go back to Krishna
Oh,
in the spiritual world. Next life is only when we are not have made full success in our devotional life. Then person may have to come back and again be born in the family of the Brahmanas or in a very rich family. So one can continue to make progress in spiritual life.
oh, okay.
Okay, any other questions? Dugu, you have any question?
Prabhuji, can Ovi say her question?
No, Prabhuji.
Okay, Ovi, you wanted to say something?
Yes. So I didn't have a question. I just wanted to say,
Mm-hmm.
if you serve Krishna's devotee so much, and you serve Krishna's so much along with it, Krishna will become so happy that even before the time comes, he'll take you back to Godhead.
Yeah, that is true. So that is the ultimate success of life, right? To please Krishna and be able to go back to spiritual world. Then there is no more birth, no more old age, no more death, no more all these things, no more all these problems. See, I was talking about old age. We don't know when the old age comes. Old age just comes and we even don't know. People become old. Their hair start to grow white. Their teeth start to fall. Their eyesight drops. They cannot walk properly. They have knee problem, this problem, that problem. So there is no date when we can say for surety that, oh, now I am becoming old. Old age just come. There is no fixed date. For everything else in our life, for all the major events of our life, there is a particular date. For example, when we take birth, right, we have a particular date. Everybody has their birthdays, birth date. And when people die, that is also a particular date, their date of death. And when you did your 5th grade or 10th grade or college graduation, there is a particular date. particular date, their marriage anniversary date. When they get your first job, you have that particular date. So everything, all these major events in our life, there is a particular date. But there is no particular date where we can say, now today I am becoming old. Right? So one cannot say that. Old age just comes secretly, confidentially, and just embraces everybody. Slowly, people are becoming older, and there are so many problems start with old age when we are becoming older and older day by day. And going back to spiritual world means no more birth, no more old age, no more disease, no more anxiety, no more tension, no more fear of exams, and just peaceful, happy life. So that should be the goal of life. That should be the goal of human life. To go back to spiritual world. Okay, thank you very much. So if no more question, then we'll stop here. Shrimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, all the devotee children's ki jai.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for wonderful, wonderful class. You gave so many examples that made Bhagavad Gita so easy to understand for all of us. So I request everyone to please unmute yourself and thank Prabhuji by saying Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Prabhu.
Hari Bol.